But if an animal could spray something with the current potency that was equivalent to the density of a whole bunch of X-wings flying at you at the speed of a firearm spraying its most crazy spray, it would be a hail of bullets equal to a napalm flame. At any point of time, all this mist around me could spontaneously condense into rain. And if all that was liquid, that would be just the same as how much it is for a storm that this same precipitation, mist is from, and treated as precipitation from whatever storm it was most likely at last that was that prominent. For Dallas, they had a massive rain pour, and it made an entire stadium in Dallas have a crack through its ceiling. The fact that that same storm has the ability to be any of this mist around me is probably a logistic that is sound, because at any point in time, this mist has been interchanging with rain throughout the entire day. And in Dallas, if it were just rain that rained the entire day, it would have been just as likely to be called the same. And I picked to describe mosquitoes because they can see breath as far away as a shark has smell of blood in the water. Just because there's so many of them, they work as a collective to see a breath like this orange light created by the mist. You're able to see it from an extended length, but if your eyeballs are as small as a mosquito's, they would be more dependent on using that ability to bite, which is read off of the combination of this and some paint in the road that's half painted, because the other half of the paint is on some sticks. And so they would use that for reassurance or that for an... So something there that you didn't know, but was close enough within 50 feet that you did. That's the same as equipment. If an electronic impulse can kinematically hit a component, where would it be most vulnerable? Well, if it were an app on a smart TV, it would be increasingly vulnerable because it is always not working. And one time I heard a pop. Equally as likely as the odd occurrence of being inside of one room and someone saying trash and neck the same time that you said red and white. That's way more likely, or less more likely, than the two baths being oatmeal and tomato based for two things that were negative, like chicken pox and getting sprayed by a skunk. Likelihoods that you would never come up with those two things if you weren't aware of taking a bath in oatmeal or tomatoes would be a good idea. You're allergic to plants. Every food and most of the material that you touch are made from foliage. So that would be almost as equivalent to living with an outbreak your entire life every time you went outside. That's the condition that the Bubble Boy had. And so literally, that's a great representation of what a diet is to someone who has to take treatment their whole life because everything made them antsy. That's what ADHD is. And if you're a kid and your bones crack internally a lot, if you're always tight with your muscular activity and lazy with your positioning, body, with your posture, and just if everything made you extremely tight, because when you're nervous your tendons tighten because your brain is about to go into a reptilian mode and run away. And so the more that happens, your bones cracked internally. to the extreme, like, and your bones and tendons got so used to that, then that would be the reason that you were unable to be outside of a bubble. And so you got so used to that bubble as just your normal life as like diet. And then liquid is like what Jesus said, you have to like eat my body and drink my blood. So what if someone was so like allergic to plants, but they had to eat them, and is good because water isn't plants, and so they would be like half alive given that fact alone within the diet of being allergic to plants. One food for thought: the candlelight theorem is a square inverse square law. At a distance, you won't be. I would say it was my fertilizer that I'm gonna try out to grow something. Would that be illegal? Because that sounds like it could only have negative solutions. And I'd say, officer, you tell me. And that might be how a scary movie starts, and you're that accurate. But even here, the one Tony Stark made versus the length at the same. So actually on TV I saw twice that they had jars of and bottles of stuff equivalent to what a skunk spray was. So on TV they do that in jail. I saw a guy, I don't know, probably 3 times. I've heard stories on TV of people doing this. Along with Conan O'Brien's, and so that would have been the 4th one because the guy got a close-up and he actually was in the rafters with the jar. So that's what is equivalent to that. So what's more likely, you getting hit with that bottle of that in it, like in jail or in a studio, because Conan O'Brien's show that he was doing it in is a literal place inside of a city. So some guy in the city in the rafters could have hit anyone with that jar, and it would have been equal to what a skunk spraying was. So is that more likely to happen than getting hit with a skunk spray? Or a mosquito having that equivalence from gaining pits inside of its beak, like what a cobra has in its jaws with the venom pits? If a mosquito had like an evolution to do that with another one, if it was hanging onto its legs, like a trapeze with a second one underneath it, it's equal to an X-wing. It's equal to it. So I said, how many animal babies, like, do you know how many there are? How many don't even make it just because they get ate like a raven would? I heard a raven say hi hi in the same state that I'm in. So if that bird was out getting other birds below it, like, that's what ravens do, they eat babies. And so like baby ravens ate is terrible, but that's what this one raven would have did if it got out. It said hi to me twice inside of a cage. So that's as close as I've ever been to a raven. And imagine if he's doing it, I bet there's a whole bunch of ravens worse than him. And so that's why Nightwolf always kept a hawk with him, because it's an automatic like fatality if it wanted to take out something. This little girl I knew almost fell down a hole, and then she would have probably made the news, but like not across the entire, like out of state, they wouldn't have put that on their news. So like this happened, almost happened, but they didn't fall down the hole. Would have been in the city down like 30 miles away. And the second worst thing is the same thing, but it's better, because instead of falling not down a hole, this was an adult hanging on the side of a cliff, would have been equal to falling down a hole. This was, I don't know where, but the more impressive part was, it said they teleported. So from hanging on the cliff into laying on the ground on top of the cliff, do I believe that? No, but is that more likely than a dinosaur?